Professor Hill, welcome to the Daily Social Distancing Show.
Thank you. We're keeping safe.
Long before the Me Too movement, your name was in the headlines because you stepped forward during a confirmation hearing. It was in 1991. It was about Clarence Thomas, who was going to be stepping onto the Supreme Court. It's a two-part question for me. Number one, would you do the same thing again considering what happened to your life following that incident? And number two, how much do you think society has changed since that?
Wow. Yes, to your first question. I definitely would. I mean, at the time that I did it for the reason that I felt the truth had to be told, that we were vetting an individual for a lifetime appointment in the highest court in the country, a country, that can be affected by any single Supreme Court decision. I felt what I had to say was important in terms of the character and the fitness of an individual who was a nominee. So I would do that again. Has the country changed? Yes, the country has changed. Has it changed enough? No. And as you probably know, confirmation hearings have actually changed as well. But we have changed, and I think there's some more growth to be had.
One of the most lingering memories from the Senate confirmation hearing that you were a part of was how terribly you were treated. And one of the people that you lived through it with was Joe Biden. There are still many people who experienced that firsthand who haven't forgiven Joe Biden. And they were surprised to see you come out and say, well, I'm supporting Joe Biden's run for president of the United States. People didn't understand how that was possible, considering how he treated you at the time. What would you explain to those people who say, but Anita Hill, why on earth would you support Joe Biden after how he treated you 30 years ago?
I lived through it. My family lived through it. My friends lived through it. And the American public lived through it. And so it's not even just about how I experienced it. It really is how the whole country experienced it. And it was painful for a lot of people. The question that I had to answer in almost 30 years later is, where are we going to go from here? And by voting for Joe Biden, I was really dealing with the reality of the moment that we have a serious problem, whether it's with sexual harassment or sexual assault, as you've seen in Supreme Court nominee hearings, or other forms of gender based violence. We have a serious problem in this country, and how are we going to deal with it? We can't undo the hearings, but we can make sure that they don't happen again. And I believe that my job really is to put myself in a position to keep pushing for that change. And I believe my best chance of making this issue one that is a part of the public agenda is with Joe Biden. It's not going to be easy. We're still just going to have to work at it and push him and his administration, if that be the case, to make some changes that the society needs.
Hollywood was maybe one of the biggest examples of where the Me Too movement really exposed what was happening. But really, it happened across industries. And you stepped up and you were part of the Hollywood Commission, where you are now dealing with these incidents. You are now trying to set up parameters that protect people in Hollywood. When you look at where Hollywood was and when you look at where you think Hollywood needs to be, how do we get there?
Well, we have made progress, and people ask if Me Too was effective at all. I think it raised an incredible amount of awareness. And so awareness really is the beginning of change. But then you've got to get down to the hard work of looking at how those kinds of biases and that kind of acceptance has been built into our structures. We started out trying to examine the structures, and then we realized we've got to do a survey. We got to hear from people who are working in the industry about what they think needs to be done. And over, no matter what we were questioning them about, we found out that One, they felt there was some progress, but not enough. It's almost like, okay, we've gotten a sense of how things might be, and now we want more, and we expect more. The other thing was accountability. That they're saying, look, we've raised awareness. Now we got to start holding people accountable. And we have to put into place the processes and policies and will to make change. One of the saddest things that I read was that many people in the workplace, in the industry, feel that Me Too has only been effective for those high profile cases
Right.
with profile witnesses and victims. And that we can't tolerate that. We've got to make sure that this movement and the advances we make are felt throughout the industry, through every corner of it, because that's where many of the most vulnerable people are.
Most definitely. But I would love to know how you see yourself in the world. You know, if there's someone out there who sees Anita Hill and goes, I had an incident in my life, but I don't want that incident to define me. How did you define yourself, and who do you see as Anita Hill?
Well, I don't see that incident that happened when I was 35 years old, which is about your age now. If you can think about your life, there's so many things that are going on now in your life, and you're at the point where you're looking ahead. You don't necessarily want this moment, as wonderful as it is to have your own TV show, you don't necessarily want this moment to define you. There are, I will tell you, bigger and better things to come, but you have to really push for them. And that's what I realized almost 30 years ago, that I was going to have to keep pushing. And it's one of the reasons that I took on the challenge of working with the Hollywood Commission. I still realize that on this issue, there was more work to be done. Outside of studying about it, there was more actual work to be done. One of the things that I want to be very clear about is I see what happened to me. I don't see it through a single lens, especially now, so many years later, looking back. I see it through the lens of gender, of course, but I also see it through the lens of race. I see it through the lens of class and who's in and who's out politically. And these are the very issues that we're facing in a whole range of ways today. So when I do work with the Hollywood Commission, it is of course about sexual harassment. It is about Me Too, but it's also about bias. It's about bullying. It's about people with disabilities. It's about different ethnic groups, different racial groups, different sexual identities, gender identities. What I'm really trying to look for is equality, equality very broadly speaking, and keeping people safe. And so I guess that's the legacy I would like to keep. For the next however many years, many of us are going to have a court that we have little confidence in terms of getting to equality. But there are other ways to fight for it. And that's one thing I've learned, especially from the hearing, that there are other ways to fight. Even when people think you have lost, that there are ways that you can fight to make sure that ultimately the goal is achieved. But you have to keep the faith. You have to stay the course.
On that note, an inspiring note, Professor Hill, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.